Ogden, Utah is one of the only towns in Utah that was not founded by the Latter-day Saints. Ogden was a railroad town because it is very close to where the Golden Spike was driven, linking the two transcontinental railroads back in 1869. It's also the town where you can find old things. We've been to one good antique mall here. We're going into this one today. This is Abby's.
Well, this place is kind of a maze, but it looks like a pretty big place, and I see some interesting things here already. There's a painted Bohemian piece from Czech Republic, so we know that's a little bit later in time. Now it's called Chechnya. I have the wee planter that goes in the middle of this Hager set in the mauve agate, but here are the candlestick holders. I do not have those with my set. They want $45 for all three pieces. A fairly famous McCoy piece, the hunting dog planter. It's a rather large and elaborate piece from their middle period. It's got the rustic colors from the 1940s and 50s. In Pacific Railroad, that is the reason Ogden is here. This calendar from 1970 is right about the time that they end the passenger trains, so you don't see the passenger trains shown on them anymore. This one's only $15, which is a good price. This was made in Pittsburgh in 1911. That's why it has the swastika. It's before this was a Nazi symbol. It's a really interesting adjustable chair. Not only adjustable, but it rocks. I'm not really sure what the purpose of this would have been, but it looks like a lot of fun until you fall off a bit. Cute panther clock back here. I'm always a fan of any of them that are clocks or planters or anything other than just the basic figure. Let's see what the price is, if we can get to it here. $74. Seems about right for what it is. I grew up with this same patterned lamp, but in clear, and ours had the prisms that hung, crystals. This is a very clean Emerson radio from the 1940s in the ivory case. Would have been a portable, that's why that raises up, and it's priced at, I think I'm reading 75 on there. If it was 25, I'd snapped that up right now. 75 seems like about the right price. This one's at Crossley from the same era. Classic brown Samsonite beliefs. Somebody actually used the monogram letters included, so that was Sinjay's. It's $44 now. These are 20th century. You can tell because they're hollow and not a flat piece, but these are really cool still. $225 is a fair price for it. Regardless, I sold by sailboat one of the same era, which is probably 1960s, for about the same price. They're selling all of these as a set, but the one that's actually a little more unusual is this one. This shape is not a shape I see as often. It is the 1.5 chord, but it's the P4B, which is more of a rectangle. 180 is probably fair considering you're getting, looks like 7 different pieces. That's only about $25 per. Lots of records, including the $6 million band. This is a cool transitional era skateboard where things have not quite gotten to the fiberglass, but it's hard plastic. This is going to be sometime right about 1980, looking at the way it's made, and it's $40. Not a bad price. I like that it's the transparent green. Okay, these always scared me as a child, but it's a musical jack-in-the-box. And this came from a toy company in Pawtucket, priced at $35 in the original box. Speedometers, some of these are fun, and you see some have phosphorescent numbers, and those are going to be from the late 40s when that was a big deal. Ours is not the first generation who wanted things to glow. Older books here, a lot of children's books as well. The Child's World and some of these encyclopedias are starting to sell again after years of kind of being ignored. Elmer Gantry by Sinclair Lewis is famous. The Rod and Gun Club has great graphics. That's going to be from about 1910, one of those adventure books for boys. $54 for the International Library of Music if you're a music lover or just like the way these look on shelves. That would be worth getting. And then these are Pacific Reporter. They have these for all over the country, but Pacific, well, apparently the Pacific went all the way to Oklahoma. I'm not so sure about that. But they are law books, and the set of 11 is priced at $279. One thing I love about the antique shows, especially out west, are people will dress in their vintage fashion, and this would be a fun black lace dress to come in. $30. Victorian calling cards were quite a ritual. You would leave yours, and then you would get something returned to you, and if the quarter was turned a certain way, it meant you were not invited to come back to call. And if it was turned the other way, or there was a note attached, then it said, yes, come on over. We didn't just drop in on people. And that's why people had all of these wonderfully lithographed calling cards to take around with them, with love's greeting. They're really fun to collect now, and they're usually just a few dollars each. Most of them seem to be $3 each. Then here we have a really cool die cut. This folds out. This one's a really neat one because it's got a woman on a motorcycle. Women did ride motorcycles at a much earlier time than people realized because it was considered something that was okay for a woman to do. Whereas not everybody thought they should be driving cars. It was a long road for women to get some form of equality, I'll tell you. These are from about 1920, about the time that women's suffragism is finally taking root in the United States. This space has a lot of fun cards. All these honeycomb valentines that open up. This is another nice mechanical valentine. Mechanical because they open up and do something, of course. And then they've got a bunch of the plastic, fantastic 1950s Santas. Santa did lots of fun things in plastic in the 50s. He skied, he held candy, he was hung on the tree as an ornament or rolled around the floor as a toy. These are really fun, and the specific area of 1950s Christmas collecting. And prices on these in here seem to be in the $20 range. Then there's this guy, he's a bobblehead. They would call him that now. He was actually called a nodder originally. And if I can get him out without knocking down this tray, always helps if you use plate stands, because this is hard on customers. There we go. We got it to stay. I don't want to take the rest of the shelf out. One little chip underneath. This was made in Japan, and it's $29, which is actually a pretty decent price. If the condition wasn't rough there, I would be tempted by this at that price. I think retail could be as much as $50 in the right place. They had a sign on the door that said they were getting a lot of fresh stock from Pennsylvania, and apparently all of this stuff from the Betsy Floyd deer from the 70s to the rubber Santas from also the late 70s to the spaghetti Santa, who unfortunately is missing half his mustache, must be part of what they got. Lots of shiny brights, lots of putz houses, and a bunch of plastic doll furniture by Renwall and Marks from the 50s. Most of these are $2 and $3 and $4, but they're really fun. And depending on the size of your doll, you can do an entire interior with this stuff. There's a box full of it here. Now this has a different mark. This is a Plasco toy. Plasco is another one of the plastic companies that made these. $6 for the oven. It looks like something right out of 1950. I think my favorite is the floor sweeper. I could get that for Zeno for his vacuum collection. The thing I don't really understand appearing in antique stores are glass pieces that are not old, priced at the same that you could get an old one for. This is $40. Pilgrim Glass made the same saying you could get for $40 or less, and this one is made in China. Don't really understand what the appeal of bringing more things that we already have is, but they keep doing it. I was just up in Canada shopping, and these say Dominion of Canada, which was what it was called by a lot of people in the 1930s and 40s, particularly when these Lesterware pieces would have been made. Ooh, Johnny 7 micro helmet phone said, this looks like it was fun. You could wear that, and then your friend could call you from as far as that was stretch. And there it is in the original box. This is priced at $45, which seems like a pretty good deal, really. 7-Up made some interesting coolers. I have one that is styrofoam. This one is actually Formica, made to be the whole setup so you could roll it out at like a baseball game for kids or that sort of thing, a picnic. It's priced at $150. Condition isn't exactly perfect, but it is an interesting one you don't see very often. Some nice pieces of Roseville. Of course, we see the big open magnolia pieces. I always like the flower frogs because they have interesting shapes. And you notice they are open at the bottom so that the flowers can absorb the water. This one is a pre-1920s Roseville pitcher here with the scenic sides. Mulberry, sepia, black, any of these off colors in transferware from the 1840s and 50s from England are considered pretty desirable. This one actually says it's Rhone scenery. So it's showing you what things looked on the main continent of Europe, but it was made in Staffordshire. And they have that at $80. Arley chicken is a Shawnee classic for $69. And behind that is another bird, but this one is on a Magellan fisher. This is going to be about 50 years older than Arley chicken. It's got a little bit of damage, so it's priced at $39, but that's a nice design. In 1870s or 80s era Majolica. They have some of their Majolica plates here as well. And then over here, this is a Jenny Lind bottle and tray. She was the very famous Swedish singer who captivated Americans in the 1850s and went on a big tour. And the glass pieces were made in the 20th century in her memory. Fun to see some Iroquois whimsies. I don't run into these very often, and condition is usually rough. These are a little imperfect, but they're a little closer to complete than some. They generally had big fringe. A lot of these were made by the Iroquois and sold to tourists visiting Niagara Falls, including a lot of young brides and grooms who went there around the turn of the last century. These are really great. These are check glass. These are these lampshades with all the beading that hang over a regular lamp. $75 each seems like a pretty good deal for those out of about 1930. Now we are in the main hall with new arrivals. This is part of what has come in from Pennsylvania too, apparently, including a lot of cast iron and the Griswold piece. This is the number 8 waffle iron. It's important that it have its base, which it does. It's got the large Griswold, which is the earlier mark on it. This is a ship's telegraph. A little bit more, but a neat piece out of the 1800s. Old cigarette rolling machine. We see these usually not in the original box. This is a great pattern here. This is Coors Rosebud from the 1930s and 40s. When Coors could not make alcohol, they used some of the money from the brewery and established a pottery. And the reason was they wanted to keep people employed during that period of time. There's some good pieces here. The rain shakers, you don't see those very often. The pitcher is nice. The big yellow, medium maroon, and small blue batter bowls are pretty cool too. And the honey pot is unusual. That's only priced at $35, which seems pretty reasonable for this pattern. Mine was a little older generation, but I just sold virtually the same exact cloisonne clock. And they really are beautiful. All the detail is really something. It was priced only at $100. This parish print is called Hilltop, and we don't see this one as often as we see some of the other ones. It has the big, huge, stately tree and the two women gazing out at the mountains beneath. That one's priced at $350. Garden of Allah, which we see much more often, is priced at $125, and this Fox Sunrise, which we see more often as well, is priced at $75. Love the dental cabinet. They've got $1,000 on it, which is on the high side for these, but it's a great Art Deco design, and all of these different drawers that originally held scary dental instruments now could be holding your collections. Love this style, and the drawers work really well because they were full of a lot of bloody things originally. Every war ends up with a new group of jackets having to do with where various boats, ships, battalions, where they moved during the course of their action. They have a whole bunch of various designations here on these Navy uniforms. There's a dress jacket from the Air Forces, or the Army Air Corps, actually, as it was called, during the Second World War. And you can see this belonged to George N. Terrace originally. Just like the commercial ordnance boxes are popular, so are the military ones. These are priced between about $30 and $50 each. Then in the middle of all this is a 1960s pinup onesie swimsuit. That's actually very cute with that striping. I wonder who made this. If it's Jansen, I'd be tempted to take it back with me for the Rose City Vintage Show. Oh my, I feel like I'm doing something naughty here. Old Russian Naval Fleet hat with the badge. This is a press carved chair, and that means that this was not hand carved. They actually used a heat process to get this, but this is a really neat design that we don't usually see. This would be right about Spanish-American wartime, and it has part of the Great White Fleet. This says U.S. Navy on it, and this one has the spindles and the wide arms of a typical turn of the last century American oak armchair. That back crest is really different. A true captain's chair with this ship carving, and it's priced at $219. Next to it, that is a potty chair for someone who is an invalid or somebody who lived in a small apartment and did not want to have a washstand commode. Then you'd have your thunder pot in there and you would dump it every day. Way to go. If you were really lucky, you had one of those newfangled washing machines, a lot like a butter churn, where you put the clothes in the top and then you turn this crank to make it go. They have it on sale for $5.99. This is neat too, a handy haste straw cutter. This would have been made by this outfit here in Mountville, Pennsylvania. A lot of these old farm things are really fun to reuse today for various purposes. You could put a glass top on that and have it as a side table, for example. This is a really pretty lamp. It's been electrified, but you could probably fix that and put it back to the original because they didn't drill through the bottom of the piece. This would have originally been where the oil was kept, but the bottom is clam broth with the cross, and that's unusual. A little red Emerson radio for $89. Gerard Educators, that would have been a cigar tin, so would White Ash have been. They're priced at $65 each. This is interesting. It says for harness work, Barber Irish threads and flax, and for shoe work, so you would have flax that would come out of there, priced at $49 from about 1900. Cute and well-loved old animals. These plasticky eyes come about 1950. Before that, you would have glass. This one is straw-filled, which is what they did back then. Cathedral accordion, that's a snazzy-looking one with the blue keys, priced at $349. These days, that's probably about the right price. Used to be you got these really inexpensively, but people have figured out they're a good instrument, and most of them still work. The old flour bin for $129 is pretty neat, and the condition seems good. I think it's a little later than it looks, though, because the handles and attachments are pretty thin. And everything you might have needed, every possible sieve, whisk, the sausage stuffer right there, wooden meat pulverizers, a buck saw, everything that mom and dad needed out on a farm to make things work. I think the thing I like best for myself for resale so far is this. It's been priced down to $19. It was originally $39, and it is a match holder, like the face. And it definitely has age. That stenciling looks like something from about 1900 or 1910, so I think I might pick that one up. Love these brass bells. Sets of bells like this. This one's priced at $69. That's a pretty fair price. I've sold these for as much as $85 or $100. They're great at a storefront. But look at the cute nursery rhyme lamp. The cow jumped over the moon, and it's got the shade. The shade's a little faded, but you never see the shade. This one is only priced at $25 as well. If the shade was in a little better shape, that would be a steal. It's actually a pretty good buy even without. This is a Kellogg candlestick from the 1910s with the separate crank box for the ringer. This is from the 1920s. You could direct dial, and they added the rotary dials. That was a new thing in the 1920s. Before that, you just had to ring the operator, and they put you through. Great printer's tray because it's got all the original print blocks, a lot of numbers. These are 1930s, and look at those Art Deco letters. You know, if you're doing scrapbooking and stuff, $200 including all of that is actually not a bad deal. There's another 7-Up cooler. the traditional metal kind. You see these soda fountain syrup dispensers, and they don't have anything on the top, and you think, is something missing? And sometimes the answer is yes, but actually the bottles were turned upside down, and this is how you have the whole thing. This one is priced at $125 because it's just a plain one. This one was selling lemon julep, and that one's priced really inexpensively. Beer bottles, again, we're in Ogden, not as restrictive as a lot of the rest of Utah, and that's why we're seeing these here. Butte Special Beer out of Butte, Montana, and that's a neat old label for $15.
We're on historic 25th Street. This is the original part of town from the late 1800s. It used to have antiques, but the antiques have moved to other parts of Ogden. There is a lot of antique and vintage here, though. For a long time, Ogden was one of the few places you could drink legally in the state of Utah. That's why you see a lot of older clubs and signs according. And at the end of the block, the historic Union Station, where at one time the logo was you can't get anywhere without going through Ogden because the railroads north, south, and east and west all crossed here. This is a fun idea. Drop your creations in the mailbox to have them historically archived by the Ogden Archives. Decorated horses are the street art here, much like in Lexington, Kentucky, but I don't remember seeing anybody with Grant on the side of his face.
Neat old display case with the old blue paint. This is going to date sometime around 1900 as well. I see why they're bringing things in from Pennsylvania, because Utah's really growing, and these are things that were not in wide supply back when it was old enough for these things to be here. So it's a great place to bring things from the East Coast now. Cute little old sewing machine. It even has its box. I like the floral design there. This one is made in Germany's British zone, so this is actually right after World War II. It was an old design from before the war, but they kept making them for a little bit until they designed new ones. And this one is priced at $160. They're calling this a hanging planter, but in likelihood, this actually was a well to keep brushes and shaving related items, because this would have hung in a bathroom. Set of 4 jadeite mugs for $35. These are real Fire King, and they're the big thick C handles. I think that's really reasonable, so we're going to take a look at the condition. These usually sell for about $25 to $35 each, so I'll take them. More early Barbies than I've seen in any one place in a long time. Lots of bubble cuts from the early 60s, some great clothes. Various hair colors too back then. And then the cans. Neat old Alka-Seltzer. It's a little faded, but this is a dispenser, and it has the last Alka-Seltzer liner in there. Priced at $4.69. This is cool. It's postal scale on and the inkwell stand, so you would hang your pens there, and then you could weigh your stuff and have it all in one place. We're still in the Mountain States, so in Tepco Pinecone. This was cafe ware that would have been used in this part of the country and in the Northwest. And it's really in pretty good shape, and it's only $12, so we're going to put that up front too. Nice old fire hose on the reel there for $100. That's a good price. They do have a lot of fun radios here. This is a GE from about 1940 in my miniature tombstone. And then this one I always liked with the roll in the front. I think that's a nice design. That's another Emerson. Oh my, yes, these used to be in bathrooms when I was a child. Evening Magic. All the things you needed for bathing. Nipples for the bottle. All of the things you would use for cleaning and wiping. $30 for the bowl set. This is from some very little baby boomers estate, I'm sure, because this would be from about 1950. Hat. Really like this other hat. There's another interesting feather hat with a whole lot going on here. That is really a whole lot of something. And these are the kind of hats that do sell, but it's $69, and I'm not sure I could sell it for that. They also have a lot of ostrich feathers. Very popular for decoration and adornments and making into fans. And they are something that people definitely collect now. In 1912, when the Titanic went down, one of the biggest losses they had was a cargo full of ostrich feathers. And they went to the ocean floor just like pieces of this fan are going to this floor. And this special high fashion hat is from New York. The Lucila Mendez exclusive. This one is $22.50, and it looks like you could have lunch while you were at it. But the blue one with the netting in good shape and the purple lining is probably the best deal at $19.50, union made in the USA. Probably sometime about 1960. Metz Beer. We see these from time to time. That was an Omaha, Nebraska brewing company, and they made these ceramic banks, or had them made for them. I don't think there's a maker name on them anywhere. I've never figured out who did them for them. $44 is about the right tag price. Collection of kitties, and the most valuable ones are the Bang Grondel. Nicely done, priced between $49 and $79. I like old signs from physicians' offices. Dr. Charlotte Merrick Weichel, this one is in some sort of a bronze, and she was an osteopath at a time around 1950, I would say, looking at the way this is made. Vegas dice clocks, they were definitely high-style kitsch from about 1980, and now they're collectible, $69 each. This is something made up at Lucite with a Roadrunner, with the Golden Nugget Casino on there. I like talc tins. They had a briefly viable a few years ago, about the time the controversy over talc started to be widely discussed, and you'd see prices like $39 on them, but it seems like they've slowed down since then. Whereas this one, the Lady Esther, appears to be priced about where I see them selling in the $19 range. Love the spatter effect on this blue graniteware pot with the ebony handle from about 1910, priced at $89. And you could put your Acme brand coffee in it. Acme was a real brand. It wasn't just Looney Tunes. This is a great swirl effect in the enameling as well. And then a bunch of the fun green wood-handled utensils from the 30s. You saw green and red wood-handled utensils up until about 1940, and then you start to see Bakelite replacing these materials. These look really great if you have a green kitchen or a collection of green and cream enamelware. Antiquing is really fun because it brings the past and these people back to life. If you're enjoying it like I am, then please click that thumbs up so that people know that you are enjoying this video. Please subscribe, because then you can click the bell to be notified of future videos. And if you're able to help us with a membership, well, that really does support the channel too, and you can find out information about memberships by looking under the dash line in the description of this or any of our videos. Insecticide used to have to be applied through sprayers, and that meant you had to get the poison in something. This particular one says poison right on it because it is Pyrox, the one best spray from the Bowker Insecticide Company in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm sure this was a very effective product. It was probably lethal for insects and the people around it. Cobalt glass funnel is unusual. Only $15. That looks like something from the 1930s. I think that's a rather good price, actually. And then this is fun. Chamberlain's tablets. Usually you just see them from bottle digs, but this one came out of a closet somewhere because it still has the label. It didn't come off from being buried. I have a bunch of these right now too from the 70s. These plush character dolls. Eskimo Pie, Little Green Giant, or actually that's the Sprout and Diggum from Sugar Smacks, and the C&H Sugar Girl. Oh no, that's the boy. Sorry. There is a girl that goes with it, which I have. This is a fairly famous needle case where you would actually turn the dial to what you wanted, and then you slip open the top and you put out what you need. This was patented in 1907. It's priced at $225. These are really something different. They're only $9 each. They show various people doing various professions, and they appear to have been made in Denmark about 1915 or 1920. So you have a blacksmith, you have a hunter, you have a scholar, a fisherman, and a sailor. Before Breweriana did figural wine bottles, well, other companies did too. This one is Galliano, $19. That one's a little as is, it says. These are an interesting collection, though. I like to boot. Buttons, we see jars and jars of buttons, but there are certain ones people look for. Marcasites attract attention because they can be made into jewelry. Anything with a figure on it is generally a little more desirable. There's a disturbing book at the beginning of a selection of used books. Large pink vase, $57. Well, they are indeed that. Those were done by Anchor Hawking in the 1980s. They are reverse painted, and if they were not taken care of well, the color can come out on the inside, so you have to make sure you check them out for condition. There are people starting to collect them, though, because it's a lot of color and design for not a lot of money, usually. More colorful enamelware here. Green is an unusual color to see. You notice there's various blues. And then, of course, the classic gray speckled. We see these around. These were originally to hold peanut butter back in the 1950s. And then you'd have a glass when you were done. And the hibiscus or petunia or poinsettias or carnations or tulips or even roses. These are priced at $12 a piece. This is a little later because it's the fired on platinite colors, but this is the party set for Little Hostess. They're asking $69 for this. It's got all of the pieces, it appears, and the box is in good shape. This is fun because it's in the original cardboard display it came in with the Dutch figures. This will date to sometime around 1940. Somebody must have just taken good care of it and kept them in there. $75 for that set. Or Acme, but this is the Acme Can Company of Philadelphia, so lots of Acme. Needle freezer from the 20s. This is the Alaska freezer. These are to make ice cream. They're calling these craft license plates because people are making them into purses or cutting them up and making new signs out of them. The Indestructo. This is a little different from the Hamilton Beach, but it's that same great green color. Priced at $179, which is a fair price for the mint green 1930s and 40s milkshake makers. Lots of milk bottles, and I really enjoy these ones with the faces. That was a cream top separator, so that you could separate the cream into the top of the head. Well, here we are in sign land and wagon wheel land. These are things we expect to see out in this part of the country. And sleds. They certainly use sleds here in Utah. There are lots of winter sports here. Skiing, snowshoeing, sledding. So we do expect to see those things. Very pretty stained glass piece for $175. That would be fun to use next to a doorway. That kid looks pretty fast to me. The classic Sears Roebuck and Company 1906 model. This is a later reproduction of the original, but they were made pretty essentially just the same, and this was probably done in the 1960s or 70s. It's priced at $49. Look at this handsome dresser. Love the big oval swing mirror, and it is part of a big bedroom set here. The gadrooning, all that little beading is nice. The handles look like they're original from the 1890s. Here's the bed frame, and I really enjoy the winged faces. Big old stack of steamer trunks. It's funny, this place has spaces that are really organized, and then there's some that are just kind of layers of things. If you were willing to take time to strip the paint off of these, somebody thought they were doing a great job repurposing, and they did what people do. They painted it white, and then they sanded it in a few places where it never would have worn, but they don't show any wear on the handles, so they really just don't look right. If you were willing to strip them back to the regular wood, though, $169 for the pair would actually be a good deal. Half off the ruby glass, and the piece that jumps out at me is this really great ice bucket from about 1940. This is Royal Ruby by Anchor Hawking when they first came up with this color. They were the ones that invented red that did not take 14 karat gold or 22 or 24 karat gold to create. And all of a sudden, ruby red was available to the masses, and it was very, very popular for a long time. Still popular at Christmas with a lot of people. Great pink phones. Early push-button wall phone at $59, and this is also a push-button at $55. The ones you want to look for are the ones that don't have the pound or the star, because those are the original version, and those are worth a lot more money. The Panapet radio. It looked like a little happy face. Very modern. From Japan by Panasonic around 1970. Like they say, Panapet 70 on them. This one has everything and it's a good color, so $49 is a little bit on the cheap side for it. It's got the holder ring, which is the important part because you're supposed to just carry it around like this. Kia Ora to our friends in New Zealand. Look at this. Kia Ora real fruit juice, orange, lemon, and lime. Imported through San Francisco, but this came from New Zealand. And that's going to be pre-Second World War. I'd say probably 1920s or 30s with that embossing. Priced at $49. I've never seen this here. Yes, more from the Battle Creek Company. Battle Creek Sanitarium, where my ancestors worked. $15 is a good price for the tins. And then floor wax. I always like these floor wax tins. I just think they're really fun. And yes, this still has the contents, $25. You can make your floor nice and slippery with it. Katie at Vintage and Vinyl is a big typewriter tin collector. I don't know if she has this in her collection. It is the government typewriter ribbon. And it is priced at $10. Now, if this is original in the box, this could be neat. This is the Valet Autostrop razor from about 1930-35. It's the PAL version. I wonder what the price is. Comes with the razor and the strop, and they were giving out compliments of the Dillon Tribune, which is a newspaper in Montana. And there it is with the original contents. It's screwed together to make your safety razor, even needs the original guarantee. I'm going to have to ask about the price. I like that. This phone is unusual in that it has the built-in shoulder pad. This is a push button from the early 1980s. I like the smoking stand, but no lighter, and that's too bad. Otherwise, that would be a very pretty piece to have. I especially like this glass. It looks like Acro Agate or possibly Vogue products out of New York. Nice JP Coates cabinet here. This one's a little more deluxe than some, but I like the handles that fall. And they are all original. Look at the big bunny mold for $199. You can make a lot of chocolate Easter bunny heads out of that. It's an especially cute 1890s little dresser here. Possibly child size. Maybe more likely for a woman's dressing area. And it has the door in which probably was held the Thunderpot originally. I really like the Eastlake style on these pressed metal handles. It is priced at $385. A little cabinet that somebody made for their kid to play with, and I loved that Formica that they used. Great barber chair from about 1900. And here's a neat chest of drawers that has an arts and crafts design to it, also known as mission style, very rectilinear. Look at the great handles, even they are very squarish. A very nice viewer and her family sent me a bunch of boxes of train stuff from the collection of one of their family, and I can't wait to open it up. I haven't had a chance yet, so I don't know whether I need this to go with it. This is a Lionel multi-bolt power pack, and it's in the original carton, which makes me think it probably works great. Priced at $39.75. And shuffleboard wax, too. Another fun carton, and actually just the same as the dance wax. Might even be the same stuff. This is neat because it's a stereoscope on the stand, and the stand ones are definitely more unusual than the handheld. This one is priced at $179. This anchor is only $17. Not a lot of people using boats around here, although the Great Salt Lake, I suppose, is deep enough for it. This just has a good look. It's a rubberized finish. It's probably from about 1960. But I think there's a customer for that, just as a decorative item on the wall, if nothing else. Cresco spelling boards. These were used in schools back in the 1930s. And they've got a whole stack of them here. This Coke can would have held your Opal Cricket lighter in the 1970s. If they made those anymore, they'd be pretty handy. Haven't seen any flamingos on Salt Lake either. But I see these planters here. One is $39.95, as is. This one is $50, made in California in the 50s. Look at the 60s telephone and a matching radio. Isn't that fun that they go together? $49.95 on the rotary phone. I think this is automatic electric. Yes, the Starlight version, their version of the Princess phone. And then Airline was a Sears radio.
Well, the review said this place was expensive, but I'll tell you, I found some real deals. This is why you just have to go and look for yourself. What's expensive to one person, well, you may have a different customer than I do and you can sell it somewhere else, or you may just want it for your collection, or you just may know something that the next person doesn't. There's always opportunity in the antique and vintage business.
If you enjoyed this video, check out this one. Also, click thumbs up to like this video and check the description for information about our Patreon, our memberships. We've got a lot of different levels with different perks and bonus videos and early content. Also, please do check out our website, theantiquenomad.com, for appraisal help. And we'll see you again for more adventures in the antique and vintage community soon. Bye for now.